got Pieter Schillebeeckx from TSL Products. Peter, tell us what you do.
That's a very good question. TSL Products has been making products for the broadcast industry for quite a long time. We have a very wide range of products, so we have audio monitoring units, for which we're very well known, broadcast control systems, so we can control third-party routers, multi-viewers, etc. We have power management products, so if you want to figure out how much current we're consuming or remotely turn devices on and off, so if you want to turn a server up at a mast tower somewhere far away, we can do that remotely. And then we've added a new product line, IBC. We're kind of showing it for the first time here at BVE, which is IDS, or Integrated Display Systems. And it's a mix between a digital signage and a control system, but really aimed at the broadcast market.
Wow, so that's the whole heap of products in there. So this is not your first time at BVE, I'd imagine.
No, I think I've lost track, but we've been here for
Likewise,
quite a few years.
Yeah. So what is it that people are coming to the show today should be looking out for you guys? I mean, tell us more about this new system.
So one of the key things really is IDS, the Integrated Display Systems. It's a way of bringing a lot of previously disparate parts of the broadcast workflow together. So, and a lot of these are simple parts, like for example, studio reference clocks. Yeah? What time is it across the facility? But we're actually synchronizing them using NTP over a network rather than having to run separate LTC timecode. On the same screen, we can bring queue or tally lamps together. Are we on air? Is the mic live? Etc. The really interesting part is because it's also a little bit of a control system, we can get that information from third-party devices. So for example, if you open a fader on a mixing console, the on-air light could come on automatically, those kind of sets. So a lot of these things already existed, but we're bringing them together. Other things we put in the mix are production timers, key to any live production, and there's a lot of different ways of doing it. But again, we're bringing it all back together on one single screen. So we're really bringing all these disparate bits of technology together.
Whereas, I mean, I wish we had that here just now, actually. But traditionally you might have a clock there, and you might have auto cue, and you might have something else here, and tally that are all fed independently, and are all systems that have points of failure. I think actually our tally system broke yesterday, blew up. So what your system is doing is bringing that all into one solution.
Absolutely, and it's very, very powerful, but it's also very, very simple. So we're bringing all that together on a single display, but we can have multiple displays. If we wanted 1,000 displays across a facility, we can share all this information. It can be studio specific, it could be green room specific. So we can also display a lot of information. So for example, who's the producer? What is the next act? Maybe if it's going out live on air, we can actually show the video, stream it off the web. We can show web feeds, etc. So it's a very, very powerful way of bringing information together.
And forgive my lack of knowledge in this domain, it's not something I'm really familiar with. So is this a hardware system and a software system?
Yeah, so it's a hardware system which is completely IP connected. We call them Remoras, which are small little display processors that go on the back of the screen. All you need to feed them is IP, standard flood cabling, and then we have a server which dishes out the information to these units. But the real power is in the way you can configure these. So you can, for example, design a screen. You can have a clock, whether it's analog or digital. You can have queue lamps, your own size, your own colors, logos, etc. So it's a very, very powerful way of bringing it all together.
It sounds like a very efficient system, whereas just the nature of having a tally system as one manufacturer and an auto cue system and maybe another data system. Presumably this is going to be bringing some cost efficiencies to organizations where there's a single system that presumably is upgradable as well.
Absolutely, and also expandable. So we're bringing a lot of things together, as I mentioned. So traditionally, one might have literally had a wooden plank with lamps on it and a clock on it and all bolted together, which is quite expensive to manually make all that, put all that together. So we have a cost saving there. But it's also a prettification. Branding is a very important part of broadcasters, and a lot of studio complexes look quite bland. You know, there are magnolia painted walls throughout the facility. So by hanging up screens, sharing with people walking past what's happening in this studio, are they on air, what's the program, maybe an output of that program, you know, you can also interact with the customer. So it's...
And you know, it's interesting, we're doing a streaming TV show here. We're not being broadcast in a traditional way, but we could benefit from all these tools. So are you seeing growth in the non-broadcast sectors that are, you know, web TV, I know a lot of fashion brands are running their own TV channels and things now. Is that an area of growth?
I think all of that really falls under broadcast. I don't think you can really separate them out anymore. The whole market is evolving very, very rapidly. So yes, we still have large customers like the BBC, etc., who run traditional style broadcasting. But even within that, you know, they're now streaming. They're having low-cost podcast versions and so on. So I think broadcast is changing very much. So yeah, we don't even see that as a separate branch anymore. For us, that's all broadcast, and we're aiming at all of those.
Well, I guess the infrastructure that leads to the point of transmission hasn't really changed. It's just instead of sending signals to an analog tower, we're transmitting over the internet.
I think also the way the production happened has changed a lot. You know, it's a lot easier, it's a lot cheaper to do. You know, to do what you're doing here 10 years ago would have required quite a lot more equipment. So I think that's also changed, and then yes, clearly the transmission has changed, which really opened up the market to a far wider audience.
Yeah. So what are you showing here at the show?
So we are showing our display system, so if you want to see how it all goes together, what it can offer, like production timers, clocks, Q lamps, information, RSS feeds, etc. We're also showing a lot of loudness monitoring, because we also still do the audio monitoring side of things, which is a big part of our business. So we're showing the new Pampico Touch, which is a compact touchscreen-based loudness monitoring and logging tool, so for edit suites, post-production suites, but also for master control if you want to see that your output is compliant to the latest loudness regulations and things like that.
So you seem to have a very, very wide array of different products. I mean, how did that come about? What's the history of the company?
So TSL, we're now TSL Products, but there is also TSL Systems, which is a system integrator, and basically we developed out of that. So to start off with, many, many years ago now, we were kind of a little workshop for the system integrator. So when they saw a hole in the market, a product they needed, whether it was a power distribution unit or an audio monitor or a broadcast control system, and they couldn't find it from anywhere else, they would basically make it. And in the beginning, these were all custom products. So, you know, there wasn't really a product range with a catalog. And then eventually they actually stood back and said, well, actually we have a lot here. Maybe we should really try and productize it. And that's, you know, about 6-7 years ago now when that really happened. And now we have a very, very strong, wide product catalog which we sell worldwide.
And where are you based and where are your offices?
We're based out of Marlow, so not too far from here, just west of Heathrow. So yeah, but global. We have sales guys all over the world, ranging from China to Brazil and anywhere in between.
So talk to me more about the audio side of things. It's not something I'm familiar with. So you do audio measurement. I mean, what else do you do?
The core really for us has been monitoring. Yeah? So initially monitoring was, here is a 1 or a 2U box. You have an analog signal coming in and you have a volume pot and some speakers and you can listen to a signal. Clearly that's evolved a lot. There's not that much analog around anymore. Still plenty, but not like there used to be. So then it evolved to signals like SDI. So it might be an embedded HD or 3G SDI signal, which has the video, but embedded within it might have 16 channels of audio. Some of that audio could be Dolby encoded, perhaps. So now the audio monitor needs to be able to understand the 3G SDI signal, be able to strip out the audio, and potentially be able to decode the Dolby. So that's kind of the generation that came after the traditional analog monitor. In the end, we're still just listening to make sure it's there. What's really happening now is that we're looking at more automated ways of alarming, because if we're monitoring 30 odd channels or 60 odd channels at the same time, we don't have 60 people sitting in front of an audio monitor listening. So we need automatic ways of telling them it's too loud, it's too quiet, there's a channel missing, maybe your metadata that goes with the Dolby is incorrect, it should be 5.1 plus stereo, but it's only mono, etc. So that's the next generation of audio monitoring.
So it sounds like a very complex set of monitoring options that are just condensed into a very simple interface, and so the machinery and the software is doing all the work for what would traditionally have been multiple operators.
Absolutely. So we don't want to do operators out of a job, but the number of channels that are now being transmitted out of these facilities has grown drastically. And the number of channels is still rising all the time. In India, they've just released another 300 TV channels. Clearly they're not all going to be producing their own content. There will be a lot of bought-in content, but still they need to transmit this stuff. They need to do quality monitoring, both on the audio and the video side. So that it's a really important market.
And you mentioned power distribution and remote power management. Talk to me about that.
Actually, when I first started at TSL, I thought, well, this is just a power box, quite straightforward. Plug in the power. What is it really bringing? But when you're actually looking at larger facilities where maybe the engine room is quite remote from the actual operational rooms, again, we can alarm. So, for example, if we have a server that should, for example, run at 12 amps current, we can set over and under alarms. So we can say, actually, if it starts to draw too much current, that might be a sign that the power supply is on its way out. So maybe we should go and check before it goes bang. Likewise, if it stops drawing current, well, maybe it stopped working altogether. So it also helps speed up the fault-finding process. In the end, we want to stay on air as much as possible. It's all about on-air time. So we can then identify, before we even gone to the engine room, exactly where the fault has occurred, with what piece of equipment. So that's a really powerful extra aspect of intelligent power management.
Fantastic. So if people are coming to the show, which booth are they on? Where can they find you?
We're on J25, not too far from the bar, so that's quite convenient. And we have a lot of products on show and a lot of people here to show you.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thank you.